11 years ago, I took a bus ride from Uganda to Rwanda. I sat next to a young man on the bus named Everest. Everest was from Burundi.
Burundi is a small country in East Africa. Burundi is one of the poorest countries on earth.
In the 10-hour bus ride that we shared together, I had the opportunity to hear Everest's story.
Burundi is home for the Hutu, the Tutsi, and my people, the Batwa.
I learned from Everest that the Batwa people were the ancient forest dwellers. But in recent decades, they'd all been kicked out of the forest land, which left them without any land of their own and living in extreme poverty. Because of that extreme poverty, they were treated terribly by their neighbors. Not only were they not recognized as citizens of their own land, many didn't even think of them as people. I also learned that Everest was studying law in university in order to advocate for his people and make a difference for their future. Everest ended up being the second person ever in the history of his country from his tribe to graduate from university. By the time I got off that bus, I knew I wouldn't forget Everest or the story of his people. 3 years later, African Road was formed. I began to make regular trips to East Africa, and whenever I could, I went to Burundi to see Everest and let him know that I was serious about being a good friend. That meant a lot of listening, a lot of learning, a lot of walking dusty paths with Everest. Of course, Everest was hopeful that there would be something that we'd be able to join him in to make a difference for the Batwa, and so were we, but it was really overwhelming. It was tough to know where we could begin to make a genuine difference. After 3 years of those visits, Everest had an idea. It was ID kits for entire Batwa villages. We found out that very few Batwa people had national ID cards. Now, a national ID card is necessary in order to vote, of course. It's necessary for legal marriage. A child born to a parent without an ID card is not issued a birth certificate, and so the cycle keeps going. Kids in Burundi receive free health care if they're under the age of 5, but if they don't have their own birth certificate, they don't get to access that health care either. People walk down the street, and without an ID card, they can be harassed or even thrown in jail with no recourse. So we thought, what if we packaged all these things together? ID kits for entire villages, birth certificates for kids, ID cards for parents, the right to vote, and even a wedding for couples who'd been together for years without recognition. This, we realized, would have lasting impact. A friend of African Road named Sarah was visiting Burundi with us at this time. She heard about the ID Kit initiative and she got very excited. She returned to her farming community in Oregon, determined to raise the money for the first ID Kit initiative. Because of the determination of Sarah and her community, a village of more than 300 Batwa people received ID kits.
ID kit give dignity to the Batwa.
A church in Bend, Oregon heard about the ID kits. They came along to Burundi with African Road, and new friendship formed. As a result of that friendship, 3 new villages received ID kits.
This friendship did not stop after ID kits. The next step was farming and sending kids to school.
We all know education is important for kids, but in the case of the Batwa, not only was education important, but because of the extreme discrimination that the Batwa face, for children to be able to go to school alongside their neighbors for the very first time was a big deal. Because traditionally, the Batwa people lived off the resources of the forest. They weren't farmers. When they lost the resources of the forest, they were living on the brink of starvation. Now, for the first time, they were able to grow food to feed themselves and their children. All these initiatives are led by Everest and his team of young Batwa leaders. This is an historical occurrence. Indigenous people serving Indigenous people. I love this African Road story of one friendship building on another friendship in order to bring about lasting impact and meaningful change.
When we began, there is no hope. But now, my people have joy from the impact of friendship.
Ashakaranga muntu ugafise mu burimyi kuko nivyo uba warari
kanori nimbona kubera ntarifise karanga muntu nta bwigenge narifise muri komine mubo mfise karanga
abana biwanje igituma karanga muntu biwanje ibafitiye akamaro ngiye kubaronderera ubu niyumva neza ko nezerewe kubera mwadufashije mukaduha izo ndangamuntu niyumva neza cyane mbere no mu matora honyine
ndakubwiza umwana warabisha ijisho akavamwe umwana akanduka gahwera ahubwo
kazoza ku muryango wanje no ku bwoko bwanje gico nipfuza mbona yuko abana
ni mumushikeko afise ingorane ziyagwaye ntashike nico cishimo cyakaranga mu mutwe.
Who could have imagined what would happen in 11 years since that first bus ride, after many walks through Batwa villages and many years of listening and drinking tea together? Now, one friendship at a time, one village here connecting to another village in Burundi, real transformation is taking place.
Friendship is something which is very important, more important than the money. If you help someone with love, is something which is very special.